Hello and welcome to a new episode of In Conversation With, where we invite fantastic experts from all across our network to discuss everything economics related about the European Union. My name is Bartha. I'm the director of Epicenter, a network of 12 free market think tanks from all across Europe. And today I've got the pleasure to welcome Martin Vlachynsky, analyst at the Institute of Economic and Social Studies in Slovakia, to discuss everything bureaucracy related. And you know that the EU likes to pride itself as this worldwide regulator. And to be honest, they're not wrong, because if you look at the number of regulations since the Maastricht Treaty, they have increased by 700%. And if you look at the number of regulations and its increase since the Lisbon Treaty, it has almost doubled. So the EU is definitely a regulatory power. But it also aims to now emphasize economic growth and economic competitiveness. So how do you think that these two things fit together, being the main global regulatory power, but also emphasizing economic growth and competitiveness simultaneously?
Well, Adam, I believe that the Commission wouldn't agree with your framing them as the regulatory power. I believe they inherently don't want to be seen as the most regulating bloc in the world. I believe what they have in mind, or the EU apparatus, is that they cannot imagine having a developing sector or innovations or whatever without a regulatory frame. So what they say is, okay, if we want AI, first we need the rules. If we want to do cosmic exploration, first we need the rules. So it's kind of a mindset that you cannot move forward without having the rules set first. Unfortunately, in reality, this doesn't work that well.
But it's not just the mindset of the European Commission. It's more of a general mindset in the European Union. You have a lot of corporates calling for these rules as well. So is it really a mentality shift that's needed across the whole Europe, or is it really specifically just an issue with the Commission?
Well, definitely there are some historical, cultural, political issues. And yes, I agree. We always talk about bureaucratic EU, but it's not only, it's stemming from the member countries, and often even the member countries gold plate the EU regulations. So it's difficult to say if the first was the chicken or the egg. Yes, definitely there's something in Europe which makes us allow regulation. I mean, we can go back to Kafka, yeah, or Mrs. Bureaucracy. And this kind of 100 years old theories and books about how the European bureaucracy works. I'm not really an economic historian or social historian to explain if it's rooted, I don't know, in Byzantine Empire or Austro-Hungarian or whatever, or the German nature. I don't know, but yes, compared, for example, to Asia or United States, the approach to creating the playing field is different in Europe.
But I think you are very much trying to fight this bureaucratic mentality. So recently your organization INES, together with the For Liberty Network, just launched the Bureaucracy manifesto here in Brussels. And in the manifesto, you're essentially calling for deregulation, not just regulatory simplification. Could you elaborate what is the difference between deregulation and regulatory simplification, and why you support the former?
Well, we all live in some kind of bubbles. And in my bubble, everybody around me was talking about deregulation, about fighting the bureaucracy. And then I started to learn there are actually quite many groups who are afraid of the deregulation. I don't mean political groups, but various lobbyist groups, unions, even some business groups who are afraid of the deregulation and call for simplification. So the main driver of the manifesto was to create a voice in the EU which is openly and loudly calling not for simplification but for deregulation. And the difference is that with simplification there are two problems. One problem, I don't say simplification is bad. Of course, simplification is always better than nothing, yeah? But the first problem is simplification means you make 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Yeah? First you create the regulation and then you somehow make it easier, more palatable, so you simplify. But the regulation is still there. It's even if you simplify, it means you are moving forward with regulation, albeit in slower pace. The second problem is that the practical question, how you do the simplification. Often we use, or the public sector use various tools of various regulatory impact assessments, and they try to somehow convert the regulations into monetary values and cut those monetary values. And from my experience, these tools sound very nice on paper, but their practical use in reality is first very difficult, and the results you arrive are often very dubious. So sometimes I'm not even sure if with something called simplification, if really it is simplification. While in the regulation, if you remove the regulation, it's removed. There's no discussion about it. It doesn't exist anymore.
Nevertheless, deregulation is kind of a dirty word here in Brussels. So how do you actually convince policymakers that deregulation is not just beneficial for big companies, but it has a very positive spillover effect on SMEs and overall the whole European society?
Well, this is a very difficult question. I can paraphrase it as, how do you convince the policymakers that markets are good? Yeah? It's our job. We are doing it since morning till evening. Somehow, somewhere we are successful, usually not that much, unfortunately. So, yeah, there's no simple answer to this. I mean, we need to, the manifesto is manifestation of our efforts. We are trying to talk about it loudly, talk about it with public, talk about it with politicians, with policymakers, with bureaucrats. The usual story is that think tanks like mine or yours are trying to promote mainly the economic benefits of deregulation of the markets and so on, and the welfare and greater efficiency and so on. But I believe we can add one more thing to the public discussion, and this is the question of populism. We have seen in the past few years that besides, immigration, the bureaucracy is becoming one of the core talking topics also for populists. And if EU and also national governments do not address the question of bureaucratic burden more directly and more intensively, it's quite possible that various populist politicians will use this topic in their favor. And I don't know, we've seen Doge, or I never knew what's the exact pronunciation of the thing. At the end, it was unsuccessful. They don't know how to do it. Yet they were able to use it as a very powerful tool towards the voters. So what I want to say is that we can focus not only at the economics, but on a broader picture. If EU wants to remain effective and coherent player, it needs to deregulate.
But it's not just the European Union that needs to deregulate, it's also the national member states. And you have had an ongoing project for many years, the Bureaucracy Index, that essentially measures how many hours of compliance an average Slovak or Hungarian company needs in order to comply with the rules. And in Slovakia, it's over 200 hours, right? So quite significant. What is the main driver of bureaucracy on a national level, and how's the Bureaucracy Index outlining the situation across Europe?
We started with the Bureaucracy Index in 2016 because we needed something more tangible than just, okay, bureaucracy is bad, red tape is bad, we have to fight bureaucracy. We wanted to show everybody what does it mean. So the idea is quite simple. We kind of made a virtually made very small company, industrial company with 10 employees, and we went through every single bureaucratic duty, starting with taxes, going through employment, waste management, and so on and so on, and counted the number of these tasks, and also assigned a time cost to these costs, and arrived to some results, which was in 200 to 300 hours per year for a tiny company. And it helped us to communicate the idea of bureaucracy more. After those 8-9 years, we did like 7 or 6 updates of this bureaucracy index. What I see, what drew me also closer towards the manifesto, is that despite I have to say there are quite some efforts. For example, in Slovakia, the Ministry of Economy, there is a special section just to deregulate and to simplify and to make things easier. You can submit all kinds of feedbacks on various rules. Yet, the bureaucracy index hardly moved in the past 8 to 9 years, and the problem is that you cut the tiny things, you change some formulary for waste management or social insurance or whatever, but in the meantime, a huge amount of new regulations arrive, which completely erase any gains you made trying to fight, this formulary or that formulary. So that's partly motivated me or us in the For Liberty to kind of move one level up and talk about deregulation, complete erasal of some. It's not erasal. It's about believing in consumer and entrepreneur and letting them do their job. And only when we see there are serious problems arising on the market from their behavior to step in with regulation. So it's about giving more trust to the consumers and to the entrepreneurs.
And that is indeed quite a different mentality, like we have seen in the European Union. Even 20 years ago, the whole idea of creating the digital single market was as a well-meant idea that digitalization is going to be the future. We will have to prepare our rules accordingly. But the issue was that from 2000 up until today, we have had 7 different EU regulations that influenced the digital single market, and now we have 88. So kind of trying to predict what the problems are going to be in the future, it's essentially an impossible task for regulators. But how do you explain the benefits of a more simplified, deregulated market, if you like? Are there some international examples that people can point to and easily say, hey, look at this specific country or jurisdiction, it worked out pretty well for them, why don't we try their way?
Well, what we suggest, there are 4 points in the manifesto, and one of the points says, besides other things, that EU should look for best practices at least inside EU. Because there are countries which already have some rules in some fields, and some of these rules are more effective, some of these are not so much effective, especially when the EU tries to harmonize. Let's not create completely new environment. Let's take some inspiration from the member countries. But when you mention the digital market, it's exactly what we started with at the beginning of this talk. That you could not imagine that we would have a digital market without a huge set of rules encompassing it first. And the end result is that everybody knows that in terms of startups or whatever kind of digital innovation, the EU is lacking behind. And for example, the cookie policy became kind of symbolic. It's the curved bananas of 21st century. Yeah, 20 years ago, everybody was talking, EU is regulating the curved bananas. Which wasn't that true much, but now today we have the cookie, and the sad thing is that even though everybody is making fun of it, and openly also some policymakers say, yeah, that's probably not working very well, doesn't make a lot of sense. This feedback, it seems like doesn't exist. That there's nobody really or no movement really trying to quickly turn it off. Yeah, okay, we saw this regulation, it doesn't make much sense, let's destroy, let's deregulate. I know there are some motions, but it will take like 15 years before there is a vote. Okay, now we want the cookie bar to be half size as it used to be. Yeah, that's why you need the regulation. There are some very stupid rules which obviously bring no added value to the consumer or business or environment or whatever policy goal you have, yet they survive year after year after year after year.
To be fair, there is this digital omnibus happening at the moment. It's moving very slowly. As you said, it's digital simplification of rules rather than total deregulation. So I think people did realize that there were some unintended consequences of these, let's be honest, well-meaning rules in the first place. But I think your analysis is absolutely correct. It's much, much slower than it needs to be, and it's much less wide-ranging. So how do we actually encourage policymakers to be able to reverse some of the bad decisions? Is that kind of is there too much punishment if they openly say, we tried it and we failed, and that's why policymakers are unable to reverse rules? Or do they generally believe that some of the rules are actually beneficial and have provided users with more choice or more safety online, but they just need to get rid of some of the bad parts and unintended negative consequences?
I believe there is a flicker of hope, starting with the Deregulation report and with the omnibus and the whole competitiveness umbrella, which is under this new commission. We will see how it ends up. I believe either, for example, you remember Cepros did some analysis about the number of words in regulations. Bruegel did similar analysis, the size of EU. So far, what we've seen is growth in under each commission term, or some plateauing. So hopefully, this relatively new commission will be able to kind of turn the point and be maybe one of the smallest initiator of new rules. We will see, hopefully. But regarding your question, again, I have to mention the book Bureaucracy by Ludwig von Mises, which is probably not one of his most popular books, but for me it's a very nice dissection of how the bureaucratic organism works. And I believe the main problem is that it's not that there are stupid people or bad policymakers with bad intentions who want to hurt the economy or hurt the businesses. It's the problem is that it's kind of an organism, the whole apparatus that feeds on new bureaucracy. That's their job, to create new bureaucracy. And that's the most difficult point. How do you convince the bureaucrats not to make bureaucracy? Yeah, I mean, it's their job. So if I would be even stricter with the manifesto, I would put there like, okay, let's slash 1% of the commission staff each year, because cut the dragon's head. Yeah, maybe it will grow two more, but hopefully. So yeah, it's like in the nature of policy making. And that's why we suggest, like, really, I actually haven't mentioned it. There are four things, four points in the manifesto. The first point of the manifesto, okay, of course, broader, but let's sum it up. The first point is let's lower the size or shrink the total size of regulatory or regulations in EU by 1% each year. So cap the size of the regulation. The second is to any new regulation add a sunset clause. That means after 5 or 7, it's up to discussion, years, the regulation will cease to exist unless it proves that it added substantial value, let's say 30%, and it has to be voted back again. So again, using these tools will help you to fight the nature of bureaucracy. The third thing is, which is there, that let's somehow force also the national or the member states to fight their own bureaucracy. Because if you fight bureaucracy on the European level, but it remains stuck at the national level, it's still a problem. So we suggest to place national goals for not regulatory size or similar thing. It's I believe subsidiarity, so it's not really feasible. But for example, on e-government and simplification, at least of some administrative procedures, because it's important also from the point of harmonization. If you're an entrepreneur from Spain and come to Slovakia and you don't know how to, or you don't have a way to communicate with hygiene authority because they don't speak English, their formularies are in Slovak, and you totally don't understand their inner working, they don't know which door you should knock on, then it's a problem also for the single market. So using this, I would call it automatic tools, hopefully will help to mitigate the bubbling and the growth of the bureaucracy.
Well, I very much hope that your 4 points from the Bureaucracy manifesto are going to become popular, and at least some of them will be adopted in the European Union. But for now, really, thank you so much for the conversation. I've really enjoyed it. I hope you have enjoyed it too, and we would be curious to hear your thoughts. Do you support the EU's simplification agenda, or would you like to go much further like Martin and call for complete deregulation? Do let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to all the Epicenter social media channels. But for now, thank you so much and see you soon.